here we are making another video now for the website. Sorry, it's been a couple of weeks since I've last posted something, but I've been involved in a bunch of things, not the least of which working on the layout. And I've had several projects running along at the same time, the staging yard project and the Union Pacific Depot project. And I made a lot of progress on both of them. The thing is that a lot of stuff I was doing was interconnected. So it was kind of hard to jump in at any point and make a video that would stand on its own. So I decided to hold off a couple of weeks and make a lot of progress, and then break things up into something that was more manageable to 8, 10, or at the most 15-minute videos. So today I'm working on this video and another one. Hopefully I'll be posting this one later today, and then possibly even the second one later than that or tomorrow. Both of them involving the staging yard project. And then after that, I'm almost completed the Union Pacific Station, and I'll be finishing that series up with the final episode, and hopefully that I've got a little bit more work to do on it. I'll wrap that all up in a presentation tomorrow. And then I've got an idea for a fourth presentation to just kind of take a break from the sequence of events here, about some of my favorite Union Pacific locomotives, and some of the reason why I enjoy modeling Union Pacific. And I've got a collection of historic Union Pacific locomotives, and I'll talk some about them, and they're pretty neat models. But to get into this first video of this series, I've been working on the staging yard project, and I've been designing the various components of it. And this first first graphic shows the area that I'm talking about on the staging yard, outlined in the red rectangle there. It's one of the two throats of the staging yard. Now, I'm going to have to repeat this whole process in making the other throat, which is at the bottom center. You can see it there in the graphic. It's just the mirror image of the first, just that flipped the other direction. And to give a little closer look, this next graphic shows the layout of the track on the staging yard throats and how it appears in the real world. And one of the things I had to do, a very key part of this thing, is making the control panel for the staging yard throat to control the switches. And I've mentioned before, and I'll talk about again when I actually show it in operation in the next video, is I wanted the control panel and the control system for the staging yard to be able to perform a number of functions, primary of which was to route power only to the tracks where I really wanted to move trains, because otherwise energizing all 9 tracks with the decoders in the locomotives and everything would probably create a substantial current draw for the system, and plus as the safety factor of not having or preventing a train from running through a series of burnouts that were closed against it. So the engineering of the control panel and the wiring associated with it was a pretty complicated project. And in actually doing it, I learned some things too. Now, in part, and I'll probably mention this again, going through this on the first staging yard throat and going up a few blind alleys and backing up and starting over, probably means the second staging yard throat will go quicker than the first one. Obviously, I don't have to spend time designing anything. It's just basically replicating what I did on the first staging yard, and changing some of the philosophies of what I was doing. But that's really kind of the whole crux of the thing with model railroading. It's you develop your own solutions for things. And as I'll mention, that I took a somewhat of an older approach to how I did the logic circuit wiring for this staging yard. I could have taken other approaches using newer technologies, but there was additional cost involved. And also, I'm comfortable with the basic electromechanical switching type system that I designed for this, and didn't have to learn anything really new, just learn some new ways of doing things. So the first thing in building the control panel, which is the heart of the staging yard, which is where all the logic operates through, is to take the design that you see in the actual track layout and translate it into a schematic that I could use to actually build the panel for the yard. And that's in this next graphic. And what I'm using here is a very standard form of depiction in railroad dispatching control panels. They don't really reflect curves. They use a series of parallel lines, and it's set at angles of like 45 degrees and 30 degrees. essentially schematically lay out the railroad, not a true map, how it would appear on a map or an overhead image like that previous graphic. Now you'll notice something first off here in this schematic graphic that I built using PowerPoint, real simple to do, is that it's flipped from sides being just at angles and the straight lines. It's flipped opposite the graphic, the prior graphic that shows the actual layout of the track. There's a reason for this because of how I decided to make the control panel. I wanted something durable, something that looked good, something that had some strength to it. And I went back and did some research on it and kind of developed my own somewhat hybrid method of doing this. The control panel, the basic core of the control panel, is made out of 1/8 inch thick plexiglass. And I got it at my local True Value Hardware, 2 pieces for like $5 total. They cut it to size for me. It's roughly 8.5 by 11 inches. And the coloring, the actual painting of the control panel, the lines and everything is going to be done from the rear. So that's why this schematic is reversed. And you can see on this next graphic, this is how I actually wound up laying out the schematic on the back side, the reverse side of the control panel. I put down, we've got a small light table here at the house that Kathy uses for her watercolor painting, transferring patterns and design. And I put the printout from the PowerPoint page down on there, again, mirror image reversed, laid the plexiglass down on top of it and secured it all so it wouldn't slide around, and then outlined the center lines of the track using green frog painter's tape that I cut into about 1/8 inch strips. I just laid it out on a nice smooth cutting surface and cut uniform 1/8 inch strips, and I centered them on the lines showing through from the paper on the underside on the light table. So what I was left with was a piece of plexiglass with lines of tape outlining where I wanted to indicate the lines on the control panel. Now, how does this work? Well, that goes to the next slide where I went in the garage and laid out some paper and got my trusty old $2.98 a can of Rust-Oleum black paint, spray paint, flat black, and proceeded to spray the back of the control panel. And I actually put on a couple coats. You can recoat in a couple hours with this. So I put on an initial coat and then a second coat. And the nice thing about this Rust-Oleum paint is it actually combines the paint and primer, and it'll stick pretty much anything when you let it cure. And so I hit it with 2 coats so that this formed the background color. And it also sealed up the edges of the tape for the second stage of the painting. When this, I let it dry overnight, and a good way you can tell it's dry is if you just hold it up your nose, sniff it, you don't get any paint odor, it's dry. Then I peeled off the masking tape, and I was left with a black panel with clear areas where I wanted lines. And what I did then is I went in with the same brand Rust-Oleum paint in a nice bright yellow and spray painted the back of it. And when you flip it around, you have basically a black background with yellow lines showing where you want to indicate the tracks are located, or symbolize where the tracks are located. And then to kind of finish it off, because you'll always have little gaps where light will get through and stuff, I then hit the back once the yellow had dried overnight. I hit the back with another coat of flat black Rust-Oleum, so it sealed everything up really nice and tight. And then this next image shows where the control panel, I've got it all painted, and then I've also drilled the holes for the push buttons, momentary contact, single pole, single throw push buttons. Those are down in front of the panel there, the little red push buttons on the left will go in the control panel, and also the green LED power indicator lamps. And those go on the holes you can see staggered down the right side. It looks like the right side of the panel there. The next graphic shows what the control panel looks like, with all the push buttons and all the LEDs in their places and tightened down. And you can see it gives a nice finished final look to it. It's somewhat like a real railroad dispatching control panel. And then I took this, and on the next graphic you can see that it's mounted, looking at the underside here, in the module for the staging yard. Now you can see it's not the greatest cutout job I did for the access hole for the panel, but it'll do because nobody will ever see it. And the next one I'll probably be a little more uniform with it. And you can see there are wiring terminals arrayed around it for the various connections for the LED lamps and the push buttons and everything. And I'll talk about that much more when I get down to showing the actual progress on the staging yard throat. And the final image, it shows how it looks on the side that'll be visible. You can see some of the track of the staging yard there. And the way I mounted it was I used plastic mirror clamps that go into walls to hold unframed mirrors like a bathroom mirror. And I thought about a variety of ways to do this, and it seemed like the best way to do it. So the panel is held down on the table area of the staging yard by these clips. And this will allow me, if I ever need, heaven forbid, to get at the underside of the panel, I can unbolt these clips, and I've wired all the buttons and the LEDs with a good size 12-inch loop wire, so I've got plenty of ability to flip it up and work on it from above. Just take it out of these clamps, and you'll see that also when you look at it downstairs. And this is how it looks mounted in the control on the staging yard throat. So that's a fair amount of work right there. And in a minute, we're going to go downstairs and we'll make the next video, which will show what the actual product looks like, how it works. Yes, I did test it before I'm doing the video because I really want to see this thing go haywire while I'm making a video. So I know that now it does work. And I've got some comments about doing wiring and why I set it up the way I did. And I hope you'll find that interesting too. On a completely different note, thing I'd like to recommend to you, I started reading a book here recently. I'm a geographer, a cartographer, and I've worked a lot in international environment. And I've worked a lot with people from other countries and allies, and it's always kind of, not to sound too critical, but it's always kind of struck me that a lot of Americans really are behind a lot of people in the rest of the world about how we understand the world and how the world works. And I came across this book the other day, and I'm really enjoying it. I recommend it to you. It's a good way to kind of increase your understanding when you read about stories in the world and how they relate to us. The book is by Richard Haass, the president of the Council on Foreign Affairs, and he's very apolitical. This is not a book written from the perspective of right or left. It's just a historian's example. The title of the book is The World, A Brief Introduction. That's kind of a presumptuous title, The World, A Brief Introduction, but it's really, really good. And he writes it basically from the standpoint of people need to understand the world and how things are. So if you're looking for a good summer read, something it's not difficult to read. He's a very good, engaging writer, and it's very enjoyable reading. But he basically, in 300 or so pages, takes you through how we got to be in the world that we're in. So if you're looking for something to read, I'd highly recommend it to you. So anyway, we'll finish this up and then go downstairs and work on the staging yard.